Welcome.
Update: after 4 years I thought I was over my wife's infidelity and my daughter's betrayal, part 2. Jocelyn is wonderful. She had just turned 30 and we hit it off. I told her everything that had happened to me. I explained that I was going to have trust issues and she understood. A year later, he told me he was going to be a dad and insisted that I take a DNA test, so I would have peace of mind. I had forgotten what it felt like to be happy again, and when my son was born, I was overjoyed. I called my grandmother for the first time in years. She cried, and when I told her about my son, she insisted I go to New York so she could meet her great-grandson. She guilted me by telling me that he is 90 years old and would like to see me one more time, and I agreed. We flew to New York, rented a car and drove to Bushwick. The only thing I don't like about the neighborhood, you just need to see one person from your past and the whole neighborhood knows you're back. My grandmother saw my son, met my fiancé, made a comment in Spanish about him being white, and I just said I did. I planned to spend the week, play tourist for once. It was Jocelyn's first time in the Big Apple and I wanted it to be special. Hell, nothing goes as planned. First my ex yelled my name from downstairs. I looked out the window and was surprised at how fat she was. My grandmother told me in Spanish to talk to her and Jocelyn agreed. I went downstairs, stood in awkward silence for a minute, and that anger came rushing back like a torrent. Marisol told me I looked good and said she looked very bad. She told me she missed me, that she had never been with another man since the divorce, and I ignored her. She even had the nerve to tell me I was a grandfather, and I gave her a dirty look. Apparently Luna was with a decent guy and got pregnant at 18. Her father enlisted in the Marines to support them, and her father wanted nothing to do with her, just pays child support and refuses to acknowledge her. He is no longer a pastor and works at Banco Popular 2 blocks from here. Then she told me that Luna had named the baby after me, and I couldn't stand to look at her. Marisol wanted me to wait because Luna was on the way, and I left. I went to my grandmother's house and I didn't have to tell Jocelyn anything, she just knew, and we left. In the elevator I told her what had happened and she smiled and told me that everything was going to be okay. Marisol's face when we left the building. She looked at my fiancé as if he was the other woman, and Jocelyn, without wasting a second, introduced her to my son. She said, "I would like you to meet his biological son." It was an unexpected twist, but she knew my pain. Marisol kept trying to stop me from leaving, telling me that Luna felt bad about what I had done and that Jocelyn wanted me to make amends, but I was very angry. I got in the car, I ignored Marisol's pleas, and Jocelyn told me to hold out an olive branch, so I gave him my number, so Luna could call me, and I left. At the red light I saw my cousin next to the Cucha Frito stand, and I don't know what came over me. I got out of the car, ran to him and beat him up. Jocelyn was screaming, telling me to stop, and when we looked into each other's eyes, I could see the fear, and I left. I came home, working, being a father and a good fiancé to a beautiful woman. However, since I've been back, when I'm alone with my thoughts his anger returns. Luna sent me a message with a picture of her smiling with her son and telling me she was sorry for what she had done. However, I don't know if she is sorry because she missed me or because the man she wanted to be her father was not the man she thought he was. I am very confused and afraid to approach her. I want to get over this, I want to move on. My family was everything to me, my daughter was my world. Even after these years it still hurts, it still makes me angry, but I know I have to move on, but it's hard. I want to get close to Luna, but I'm so afraid. There are people telling me to let her back, but all I can think about are those text messages and the lies. The constant lies, I need help, and my usual methods are not working. Thank you for reading this, I needed to get this off my chest. As I mentioned, I don't care if you think this is false, but your help is appreciated.
Comments.
Update 1, I'm waiting for the mods to approve this. It's been a while and yesterday was Father's Day. Luna tried to call me several times and I was looking at the phone. I wanted to answer, I didn't, but the only thing that was hovering in my mind were those messages. What he was saying to his mother, to his real father, to his friends. So I ignored him. I finally listened to his voicemail and he sounded so cheerful. He apologized briefly for his actions, but to me, he didn't sound sincere, just passive. Maybe I'm overthinking it. She told me about her son, her finances, and asked me to call her. Simple requests and I was furious. My grandmother and fiancé tell me to give her a chance, but when I asked my grandmother if Luna or Marisol ever asked about me in the 4 years I was gone, she said Marisol did, constantly, but Luna did not. So in my twisted mind I think Luna wants me in her life so her son will be taken care of. Or maybe she wants to milk me and that's what made me so angry. Even Marisol tried to call me constantly and I'm already thinking about changing my number. So I spent most of my dad's day at the gym, hitting the heavy bag, and I have an appointment today with an anger management group. Maybe they can give me an outside opinion. If this ever gets posted by the mods, I'd like their opinion as well. In the meantime, I'm figuring this out on my own.
Comments.
Update 2. I'd like to thank a friend who commented here for his advice about sending an email as a start. I sent a short email to Luna that simply said, "What do you want?" not expecting the multi-paragraph response. She started the email by apologizing profusely for the way she acted. He said that when he found out I wasn't his father, he got angry. He confronted his mother and she cried, making him promise not to tell me. As she felt lost, she started talking more and more to my cousin, her real father. She told him about my violent past, the things I used to do, things I kept from her. This infuriated her, and the more time they spent together, the more she distanced herself from me. She said she felt bad from time to time, but my cousin reinforced her feelings for me. On the day of our quinceañera, she said that, as we were dancing, she realized how ridiculous she was being. She realized how much I loved her, and then her messages appeared on the screen. In the days that followed, my wife's family told her to give me space. Not to call me, and she heeded. She told me she was watching her family fall apart because of her and there was nothing she could do to fix it. She told me she understood why I did what I did, however, she wanted to reach out to me. Her grandfather kept telling her that I loved her, that I had raised her, and that, despite what she saw through his messages, I would do the right thing, and she believed him. During the divorce, her mother fell into a dark place. She didn't talk to her, she barely ate, she just existed. When she found out that they had erased my name from her birth certificate, she said she had a panic attack. Her mother told her they would have to go back to Brooklyn, and when she asked about her life and school, her mother said, "That was the life your father gave you, and he's not your father anymore." So she called me, pleading, and I cursed her and then hung up. She cried for days. She tried to contact my cousin, who ignored her. She even went to church and he told her to leave, he called her a mistake. Her mother refused to talk to her, she basically locked herself in a room, which she only came out of to go to the bathroom or take a shower. She begged her grandfather to take her to see me, and when they got to Long Island, she found out that I had moved out. Her grandfather told her he would talk to my grandmother and find out where I had gone. According to her, the next 2 years were hell. The whole neighborhood knew what had happened to her and her mother. Her father avoided her at all costs and tried to avoid paying child support. It took her grandfather threatening her to get her to start paying. Meanwhile, her mother would not talk to her, she locked herself in her room. The few times they spoke, he called her ungrateful and was the reason she lost the love of her life. Her grandfather had to put her mother in her place by telling her that her infidelity was the reason she lost the love of her life, and she went back to locking herself in her room. So Luna barely stayed home, and that's how she met the father of her child. He worked at the bodega on the corner, they were the same age, and after a few months of talking, one thing left the other and she ended up pregnant. Her grandfather was furious, but when her boyfriend insisted he would marry her, things calmed down. Luna said her pregnancy was a blessing in disguise. Her mother started talking to her again and even started leaving the room to be by her side at every checkup. Being a pregnant high school senior was a cliché, but she made it work. A month before the baby was born, she graduated and her boyfriend enlisted in the Marines. He wanted to elope before he left, but she wanted a wedding. Her boyfriend had no problem naming his son after me. Apparently, his father was absent, and the fact that he was a junior reminded him that he shared the name of a man who didn't want him. When he found out I was in town, he got a speeding ticket trying to get to my grandmother's apartment. He wanted to see me, he wanted to apologize, he wanted me to see his son, he just wanted to see me. However, he was late and cried. When his mother gave him my number, he wanted to call me immediately, but the whole neighborhood was talking about how he had beaten up his father, so he waited. Her mother was saddened to see that I had moved on and had a son. Luna was happy to know she had a baby brother, but her mother got a little more depressed. I felt sorry for Marisol. After reading the email, I called Marisol and asked her if it was true that she refused to talk to Luna for years and blamed her for our divorce. She confirmed it, and at first I yelled at her, but regained my composure when I heard her crying. I told her to move on. I told her to find someone else, but she said no. She told me that I was her husband and always would be. It broke my heart a little. Then I had my grandmother go to my cousin so I could talk to him. As soon as she heard my voice, she started crying and begged me to forgive him. I asked him why he had not been a father to Luna. Why he turned her against me and told me it was envy. He was in love with Marisol and I took her away from him. When I was arrested, he comforted her, he manipulated her, and he barely lasted a second with her, and she realized what he was doing and pushed him off her, but he had already come. When he found out she was pregnant, he knew the baby was his. They both knew it was supposed to be a secret. Marisol took her double hysterectomy as a punishment from Jesus for her infidelity and cheating. When Luna turned 13, I was drunk. Seeing my life, and envy was the one sin he couldn't shake off. So he wanted to ruin her, and he did. I told him that when we met again in hell, I would be his eternal tormentor and hung up the phone on him. Jocelyn was supportive and told me that everything would be fine. Luna and I commented to each other by email. I talked to her on the 4th, she was crying for over an hour while talking to me. I even talked to her boyfriend who asked my permission to marry her. I thought it was funny, but honorable. My wedding is next month and Jocelyn wants me to invite Luna. At the same time, Luna wants me to give her away for her wedding in November. My future father-in-law sat down with me and told me that he couldn't understand my situation, but that he respected the path I had taken. Because the path saved his little girl, gave him a handsome grandchild and a future son-in-law he would do anything for. That made me laugh. But she told me I had to let go of the anger and start forgiving, but never forgetting, and she's right. So we gave Luna an invitation to my wedding. We even offered to pay for her plane ticket. Her boyfriend, or should I say fiancé, said he would work it out in my garage when they arrived. I like her. As for giving it to me as a gift, I don't know yet. Let's see how the wedding plays out first. Thanks again for the advice and the few DMs. No one was rude or disrespectful. You guys have helped me a lot. I will update if anything happens, but for now, I have to get things ready for my wedding next month.